You are not who you think you are. Let that sit for a second. The version of yourself that you've been selling to the world, the capable one, the one with potential, the one who's almost ready, that version is a lie you've been telling yourself so long you actually started to believe it. And today, right now, in this moment, that lie ends. I don't care how comfortable you've gotten living inside it. I don't care how long you've been feeding it. That lie is the reason you're still exactly where you were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Same excuses, different day, same results. Nothing. You wake up and reach for your phone before your feet even hit the floor. Think about that. Before you've done a single thing for yourself, before you've stretched, before you've breathed intentionally, before you've thought a complete thought of your own, you've already handed your brain over to someone else's agenda. You're reading someone else's opinions. You're watching someone else's highlights. You're consuming someone else's life before you've even started living yours. And you do this every single morning. Every single morning. And then you wonder why you feel behind, why you feel empty, why you feel like the world is passing you by. It's not a mystery. You gave it permission to happen. Your brain was not designed for what you're doing to it. It was not built to process the flood of dopamine that pours through it every time you get a notification, every time you scroll to something new. Every time that little red number pops up on an app icon, your brain was built to survive. It was built to hunt and build and struggle and earn its rewards through genuine effort. Every spike of dopamine was supposed to come from something. Real food you caught, shelter you built, a connection you earned through vulnerability and time. Now you're hacking that system 50, 60, 100 times a day with zero effort. You tap a screen, dopamine, you tap again, dopamine, again. And every time you do that, your brain recalibrates. It resets its baseline. It says, this is what reward feels like now. And everything else work, discipline, effort, discomfort starts to feel not just hard, but unbearable, impossible, like torture. That is not weakness. That is chemistry. But here is where it gets brutal. You are the one who created that chemistry. You trained your own brain to be addicted. Nobody did it to you. The phone didn't force itself into your hand. The algorithm didn't kidnap you. You sat down willingly, repeatedly, daily, and you rewired the most powerful organ in the known universe into a dopamine craving machine that cannot sit still for 3 minutes without reaching for a hit. You did that. And now you have to undo it. And undoing it is going to feel like death. And you're going to do it anyway. Because here's what's on the other side of that discomfort. Here's what's waiting for you if you can get through the withdrawal. And yes, it is withdrawal. It is a real neurological process. On the other side is clarity, real clarity. The kind you haven't felt since you were a child before the screens took over. The kind where a single idea can hold your full attention for an hour. The kind where sitting quietly doesn't feel like punishment. The kind where your own thoughts don't terrify you. That clarity is your birthright and it's been stolen from you one scroll at a time. Now let's talk about procrastination because it is not what you think it is. You think procrastination is laziness. It is not. Laziness is a choice made by people who don't care. Procrastination is something far more insidious. It is fear. It is avoidance. It is the mind protecting itself from the possibility of failure by never starting. If you never start, you can never fail. You can keep the dream alive in your head, perfect and unblemished, and you never have to find out what happens when it meets reality. That is what procrastination is. It is cowardice dressed up as busyness, dressed up as not the right time, dressed up as I'll start Monday, dressed up as I need to do more research first. It is your ego protecting itself from being exposed. And I want you to hear this because it might be the most important thing you hear today. The longer you procrastinate, the more proof you give yourself that you can't do it. Every day you don't start is a vote against yourself. Every time you say tomorrow, your brain files that away as evidence that you are someone who doesn't follow through. And over time, over months, over years, that evidence stacks up into a belief system, into an identity. You become the person who almost did things, the person who had ideas but never executed. And you know how that feels. You know that feeling in your chest when you lie in bed at night and think about everything you were supposed to do and didn't. That low-grade dread that lives behind your sternum. That quiet shame. That's not random. That's the weight of every decision you made to avoid being uncomfortable. You are stuck. Let's be honest about that. You are stuck and you know it. And you've been trying to motivate yourself out of it for months, maybe years, and it hasn't worked. Motivation hasn't worked because motivation is not the answer. Motivation is an emotion. Emotions come and go. Some mornings you wake up fired up and ready to attack the day. And some mornings you wake up and can barely move and you feel nothing. And the thought of doing the work makes you want to disappear. And if you're waiting for the fired up version of yourself to show up consistently enough to build something real, you are going to be waiting forever. That version comes and goes. It cannot be relied upon. It is a guest, not a resident. Discipline is the resident. Discipline is the thing that shows up when motivation has left the building. Discipline is what gets you out of bed when every cell in your body wants to stay horizontal. Discipline is what gets you to the desk when the blank page terrifies you. Discipline is what keeps you moving when the results aren't coming and the doubt is screaming and quitting feels like the only sane option. Discipline is not something you feel. It is something you decide. And you have to decide it before you need it, before you're tested, before you're tired, before you're scared. You build it in advance through small, repeated choices that seem almost meaningless in the moment, but compound over time into something unbreakable. Look at where you are right now, not where you want to be, not where you imagine you'll be someday, where you actually are today. Look at it without flinching. Look at your bank account. Look at your body. Look at your relationships. Look at your skill set. Look at how you spend your time. Really look, because most people cannot tolerate an honest inventory of their own life. It is too painful. It confronts them with the gap between who they are and who they claim to want to be, and that gap is humiliating. So instead of looking at it, they distract themselves. They scroll, they drink, they watch, they numb, they do anything that keeps them from sitting in the discomfort of their own reality. But that gap doesn't go away just because you stop looking at it. It widens. Every day you refuse to look, it gets bigger. And here is the truth about time that most people refuse to accept. You are not running out of time. You are running out of the time you've already wasted. Those are different things. You still have time to build something. You still have time to get hard. You still have time to rewire your brain and restructure your days and become the person you've been pretending you're about to become. But the clock is moving. Every day you spend in comfort is a day subtracted from your potential, and you can't get those days back. You cannot reclaim yesterday. You cannot rewind the years you spent half asleep, semi-committed, sort of trying. They're gone. What you can do, the only thing you can do is decide right now, in this moment, that not one more day gets wasted on comfort and avoidance and the hollow counterfeit version of living that you've been calling a life. The comfort zone. Let's really talk about it. Not the cliche version, not the inspirational poster version, the real version. The comfort zone is not a place you visit. It is a prison you built around yourself so carefully, so slowly, that you started to mistake it for freedom. Every time you chose the easy option, you added a brick. Every time you avoided the hard conversation, every time you skipped the workout, every time you ordered the delivery instead of cooking, every time you hit snooze, every time you scrolled instead of created brick by brick, you built walls. And now you're standing inside them wondering why you can't breathe, why you feel trapped, why everything feels flat and gray and slightly pointless. That's what comfort does. It removes friction, and friction is the point. Friction is growth. Friction is the thing that makes steel out of iron. You are not designed to be comfortable. You are designed to adapt, to overcome, to push through resistance and come out stronger on the other side. Every system in your body, every mechanism in your psychology, every piece of your architecture is built to respond to challenge. You get stronger when you lift heavy. Your lungs expand when you run. Your mind sharpens when it grapples with difficult problems. Your character solidifies when you do the right thing, even when it costs you something. You were built for this. And you've been robbing yourself of it by choosing comfort at every single turn. Think about the version of yourself that exists on the other side of consistent effort. Not the fantasy version, not the perfect, airbrushed, Instagram filtered version. The real version, the version with calluses on their hands and discipline in their body and clarity in their mind. The version that wakes up early not because an alarm forces them to, but because the day holds real purpose. The version that doesn't need external validation because their self-respect is earned, not borrowed. The version that has done hard things repeatedly and therefore knows with certainty that they can do hard things again. That version of you is not some distant, hypothetical future person. They are you, minus the excuses. They are you after the work, and the only thing standing between you and that version is a series of daily decisions that feel small and almost invisible in the moment, but are in reality the most important choices of your life. Now I want to talk about mental weakness because we don't talk about it honestly enough, and because you are engaging in it right now and probably don't even recognize it. Mental weakness is not crying. Mental weakness is not fear. Mental weakness is not struggling. Those things are human and real and have nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Mental weakness is the habitual choice to take the easier path even when you know the harder path is what you need. It is the repeated decision to quit before the discomfort gets too intense. It is the way you negotiate with yourself in the middle of effort, the voice that says, "That's good enough. You've done enough today. You can rest now." When the truth is that you're not at your limit, you're at your comfortable edge. And there is a massive difference between those two things. Your actual limit is far beyond where you stop. Your actual capacity is multiple times what you currently exercise. You have never even been close to what you're truly capable of because you've never stayed in discomfort long enough to find out. You bail at the first sign of real difficulty. You negotiate yourself back to comfortable before you've even scratched the surface of your potential. And then you walk around wondering why you don't feel like enough, why you feel vaguely disappointed in yourself, why the life you're living doesn't match the one you imagined. It's because you've never tested yourself hard enough to know what you actually are. You've been operating at 30%, calling it maximum effort, and then feeling like a failure for not getting maximum results. The internal war. This is where we get to the real thing, because what I'm describing is not just a productivity problem or a habits problem or a lifestyle optimization issue. What I'm describing is a war, an actual war that is happening inside you right now in real time between two versions of who you are. One version is the animal, the instinctive, comfort-seeking, pain-avoiding, dopamine-chasing creature that evolution built. That version of you is incredibly powerful. It has been keeping the species alive for hundreds of thousands of years. It is wired to conserve energy, to seek pleasure, to avoid risk, to stay close to the warmth. It is not evil. It is just ancient, and it is running your life. The other version is the one you catch glimpses of, the one who shows up in moments of crisis or inspiration, the one who goes beyond what you thought possible when everything is on the line, the one who pushed through the last rep when every signal said stop, the one who stayed up working when everyone else had given up, the one who showed up after the heartbreak, after the failure, after the humiliation, and said, "I am still here." That version of you is not fantasy. That version of you is real, but it is quieter than the animal. It doesn't scream. It speaks in the voice of discipline, of intention, of long-term thinking. And in order to hear it, you have to get quiet enough. You have to get uncomfortable enough. You have to take away the noise and the dopamine and the distraction long enough for that voice to surface. That is the dopamine reset. That is what this is actually about. Not just putting your phone down, not just taking a break from social media. This is about systematically dismantling the chemical addiction your lifestyle has created and rebuilding your relationship with effort, with boredom, with discomfort, with the slow grind of real work. This is about resensitizing your reward system so that genuine progress feels good again, so that doing hard things generates the satisfaction they're supposed to generate, so that you can sit with an idea for an hour without reaching for stimulation, so that silence doesn't feel like a vacuum, so that being alone with your thoughts doesn't require chemical management. This will take time, weeks, maybe months, and in the early stages of this reset, everything is going to feel worse. The work that used to feel manageable will feel unbearable. The silence will feel aggressive. The boredom will feel like agony. You will have powerful urges to return to the scroll, to the noise, to the numbness. And here is what you have to understand about those urges. They are not you. They are the addiction talking. They are your brain, resensitized and confused, screaming for the dopamine spike it has become dependent on. That voice is not wisdom. That voice is not intuition. That voice is withdrawal. And the only thing to do with withdrawal is push through it. On the other side, and I need you to hear this, on the other side is something you may not have felt in years. Presence. Real, full spectrum, unfiltered presence. The ability to be completely inside the moment you're in, to eat a meal and actually taste it, to have a conversation and actually hear what's being said, to sit outside and notice the temperature of the air and the quality of the light without your brain rushing ahead to the next stimulus. These are not small things. These are not just aesthetic pleasures. This is your nervous system functioning as it was designed to function. This is your life experienced rather than managed. Let's talk about accountability, real accountability, not the soft, gentle, be kind to yourself version that the internet loves to sell you. Not the version where you make a mistake and you just forgive yourself and move on and change nothing. That is not accountability. That is absolution. Accountability is looking at what happened, what you chose, what you avoided, what you produced, what you didn't, and being unflinchingly honest about your role in all of it. Not just the parts that make you look good, all of it. You have been the architect of exactly where you are. Every choice you made, including the choice to not choose, to not act, to stay comfortable, led you here. The job you hate, the body you're unsatisfied with, the life that feels smaller than you imagined, that is the direct product of your consistent choices. And that is not said to punish you. It is said to liberate you. Because if you created this, you can create something different. The same mechanism that got you here can get you somewhere else. Your choices got you into this situation. And your choices, different choices made consistently over time, can get you out. But you have to stop blaming. You have to stop pointing at the economy, at your upbringing, at your circumstances, at your genetics, at bad luck. Not because those things aren't real. Some of them are real. Some of them are genuinely, legitimately unfair. But the moment you make those things, the moment you hand them the power to determine your outcome, you give up your agency. You become a passenger in your own life. You become someone things happen to instead of someone who makes things happen. And that passenger mentality, that victim posture, is the most expensive thing you will ever carry. It costs you everything. The people who have built the things you admire, the level of discipline you secretly envy, the physical capability you see and feel slightly jealous of, the mental toughness that makes you think, I could never do that. They are not special. They did not start with more than you. They did not have easier lives or better genetics or circumstances that made it simple. What they had was the willingness to confront their own weakness repeatedly without flinching over a long period of time. That's it. That is the whole secret. It is not a technique. It is not a hack. It is just the willingness to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. And that willingness is a choice. Your choice every single day. Now let's build something, because it is not enough to be broken open by the truth if you don't know what to do with the pieces. Here is how this actually works. Here is how you begin to rebuild. The first thing you do, the very first thing, starting today, not Monday, today, is you cut the artificial stimulation, not forever, not as a punishment, but as a deliberate act of recalibration. You reduce the scroll. You reduce the passive consumption. You reduce the background noise, the podcast that plays while you do everything, the TV that's always on, the music that fills every moment of silence. You create space, actual space, empty, uncomfortable, challenging space. And in that space, you sit with yourself. That might sound simple. It is not simple. Sitting with yourself without stimulation, without escape, is one of the hardest things a modern person can do. Because what comes up in that space is everything you've been using the noise to drown out. The anxiety about whether you're on the right path, the grief about time already lost, the fear about whether you're capable of what you want to build, the anger about things that happen that you haven't processed, the loneliness, the doubt, the quiet, persistent feeling that you are falling short of who you were supposed to be. All of that comes up, and your instinct is going to be to immediately reach for the phone, to make it stop, to put the noise back on. Don't sit in it. Let it come. Let it be there. Don't fight it. Don't analyze it endlessly. Just let it be present. Because here's what happens when you stop running. The things you were running from lose their power. The anxiety that felt catastrophic starts to feel manageable when you stop amplifying it with avoidance. The grief starts to move through you instead of getting stuck. The fear, when you face it directly instead of fleeing it, reveals itself to be smaller than the shadow it was casting. You start to see your actual problems more clearly without the distortion of chronic stimulation, and you start to find that most of them have real solutions that require real sustained effort. Not magic, not luck, not the right mood, just work. This is how you start to rebuild discipline, not by trying to do everything at once, not by a massive overhaul of your entire life in a single weekend. That never works. You've already tried it. New Year's resolution, dramatic commitment, massive initial effort, spectacular collapse. That is not how human beings actually change. Human beings change through small, repeated, consistent actions performed over a long period of time with the understanding that nothing dramatic is going to happen in the short term. The results come later. After the work has compounded, after the identity has shifted, after what was hard has become automatic. Start with your morning. The first hour of your day determines the psychological tone of everything that follows. If your first hour is passive, scrolling, consuming, being fed information and stimulation, your brain enters an addictive, reactive state that colors the rest of the day. Your decision-making becomes impulsive. Your attention becomes scattered. Your sense of agency diminishes. Everything feels like it's happening to you. But if your first hour is active, intentional, physically engaged, mentally directed, if you use it to move your body, to think, to plan, to do something hard before the world has made a single demand of you, your brain enters a different state entirely, a state of agency, a state of forward momentum, a state that says, I am someone who does things before I'm asked, before I'm comfortable, before the conditions are perfect. That shift in the first hour costs you nothing except the willingness to feel uncomfortable for a short time. It requires no money, no equipment, no particular skill. It requires only the decision to get up and do something before you reach for the screen. And that decision made every morning for 30 days begins to rewire the neural pathways that govern how you experience yourself. You start to build evidence, not motivation evidence, proof that you are someone who follows through, proof that the voice that says, I'll do it later is a liar, proof that you are capable of choosing discomfort voluntarily and surviving it and being better for it. The workout, it doesn't matter what it is. It matters that it is hard. It matters that it is regular. It matters that you do it on the days you don't want to, especially on the days you don't want to, because those are the days it actually builds something. Not the days when you feel strong and the workout feels good and everything flows. Those days are easy. Those days are a gift. The days that matter are the ones when you're tired and unmotivated and your body is stiff and the workout feels pointless and you do it anyway. Those days build the character. Those days add the steel. Those days tell your brain at a very deep level that you are not the kind of person who stops when it gets hard. And that message, repeated enough times, becomes your identity. Your identity. Let's go deep on this because it is everything. Who you believe you are is the ceiling of who you can become. Not your talent, not your intelligence, not your circumstances, your identity. Because you will always act in accordance with who you believe yourself to be. If you believe you are someone who struggles with discipline, you will unconsciously find ways to confirm that belief every day. If you believe you are someone who always quits, you will quit. If you believe you are someone who doesn't deserve success, you will sabotage every attempt at it. The identity runs the behavior. The belief runs the outcome. This means the work of change is not primarily behavioral. It is not about finding the right system or the right routine or the right productivity method. The work of change is fundamentally an identity project. You have to change who you believe you are at the level of core self-definition. And you can't do that with a vision board. You can't do that with affirmations said to yourself in the mirror. You change your identity. The only way human beings actually change their identity, through action, through doing the thing that the person you want to become would do, through being that person before you feel like that person, through acting your way into a new belief system rather than waiting to believe your way into new action. This is the counterintuitive truth of human transformation. You don't get confidence and then start. You start and then get confidence. You don't get discipline and then build habits. You build habits and then become disciplined. You don't discover who you are and then live it. You live it and then discover who you are. The action comes first, the feeling follows. And everyone who tells you to wait until you feel ready is keeping you stuck in a holding pattern that will last the rest of your life. You are going to encounter people who don't understand this path. People who see you changing, getting up earlier, training harder, eliminating the noise, spending less time on the pointless things, and they will be uncomfortable, not maliciously, not because they want you to fail, but because your growth is an implicit judgment of their stagnation. When you choose discipline over comfort, the people around you who are still choosing comfort feel that, and some of them will try to pull you back. They'll call it balance. They'll call it being too intense. They'll say you've changed. Like, it's an accusation, and you will have to understand that this discomfort they feel is not your responsibility. Your life is not a comfort object for other people's self-image. You are allowed to grow beyond where you started, even if it makes people uncomfortable. The loneliness of this path is real. I want to acknowledge that because I think a lot of people start the journey and then bail when they realize how isolating it can feel. When you are operating at a different level of intensity and focus than the people around you, there will be gaps. There will be moments when you can't relate and you feel alone in what you're doing. That feeling is real and it matters, but do not let it stop you. Do not let the fear of that loneliness pull you back to the group, back to the numbness, back to the easy collective mediocrity of people who have all agreed not to try too hard so that none of them have to feel bad. That loneliness, walk through, leads to a deeper kind of connection with yourself first and eventually with other people who are choosing the same path. Let's talk about the hard conversations you've been avoiding with yourself about what you actually want. Not what you're supposed to want, not what would impress people, not what sounds reasonable or achievable or safe. What do you actually want? Because I think a lot of the avoidance and procrastination and distraction is not just fear of failure, it is also fear of wanting. Fear of allowing yourself to fully want something, because wanting creates vulnerability. If you don't let yourself want it fully, it can't hurt you fully when it doesn't come. You've been protecting yourself by staying half committed, by having one foot out the door, by maintaining plausible deniability. I didn't really try, so this doesn't count. That self-protection costs more than the risk you're trying to avoid. Full commitment is terrifying. Putting everything into something and not knowing if it will work is one of the most psychologically exposed positions a human being can be in. But it is also the only position from which anything real ever gets built. Half commitment gets you half results on a good day and nothing on most days. Full commitment, sustained over time, produces things that seemed impossible from the starting line. There are no exceptions to this. Every person who has ever done anything genuinely impressive, committed fully, failed loudly, stayed in it anyway, and made something. Every single one. Here is what the discipline you're building is for. Here is the actual point of all the discomfort, all the resistance, all the deliberate difficulty. It is not suffering for its own sake. It is not proving something to anyone else. It is not a performance of toughness. The point of building discipline is that it gives you access to more of your own life. It gives you the ability to do the things that are meaningful to you without being constantly derailed by comfort seeking and avoidance. It gives you a relationship with yourself built on trust rather than disappointment. It gives you a body that functions at a level that makes your days feel alive rather than heavy. It gives you a mind that can hold focus and drive toward a goal and stay in the game when the game gets hard. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. Because what is a life in which you cannot do the things that matter to you? What is a life in which your greatest ambitions remain permanently in your head, untested, unbuilt, waiting for a day that never comes? That is not living. That is rehearsing. And the rehearsal eventually just becomes the life. The gap between who you are and who you intended to become becomes the story you tell yourself, the identity you carry, the quiet sadness behind your eyes that you try to outrun with busyness and noise. You are going to fail on this path. Hear me very clearly. You will fail. You will have days when you sleep in, days when you waste hours, days when the old habits come back with a force that surprises you, days when you feel like you've lost all the ground you gained. You will have these days. They are not signs that you are not the right person for this. They are not evidence that you are fundamentally broken. They are just days. What matters, the only thing that matters, is what you do the next day. Whether you use the failure as fuel or as an excuse, whether you let it be one day or let it become a week, in a month, in a return to exactly where you started, the failure is not the danger. The response to the failure is everything. The people who make it are not the ones who never fall down. They are the ones who get up faster. Not without pain, with pain, through pain, taking the pain with them and moving anyway. That is the actual definition of toughness. Not the absence of hurt, not the invulnerability to setback, the speed and consistency of the recovery, the refusal to stay on the floor longer than is absolutely necessary. The decision made in the dark, made when nothing is going right, made when the evidence suggests you should quit to stand back up one more time. There is a moment in every real transformation where you stop waiting to feel different and you start choosing to act differently. Where you stop asking when it's going to get easier and you start accepting that it isn't going to get easier. You are going to get stronger. Where you stop seeking permission from your emotions to take action and you take action as an act of defiance against those emotions. Where you stop being managed by your own psychology and you start managing it. That moment is not dramatic. It doesn't come with music or a feeling of lightning. It comes quietly, like a decision, like a small, firm closing of a door, like a voice that says, not loudly, but with absolute certainty, this is the last time. This is the last time I let this win. That moment can happen right now, not next week, not when the circumstances are better or the timing is right or you've had time to prepare. Now, in this exact moment, in this state, whatever state you're in, tired or fired up or scared or numb, the decision is available to you right now. The decision to become someone who does not negotiate with comfort. Someone who does not let fear of failure be an excuse for inaction. Someone who holds themselves accountable to the gap between who they are and who they intend to be, and who closes that gap daily through repeated, unglamorous, unrecognized effort. What does that daily effort look like? It looks like nothing spectacular. That is the point. It looks like getting up before you want to, moving your body when it protests, sitting down to the work without waiting to be inspired, pushing through the difficulty without immediately reaching for relief, having the conversations you've been avoiding, making the decisions you've been delaying, doing the thing that needs to be done with none of the conditions being right and no guarantee of the outcome. Every day, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what else is happening, regardless of whether anyone is watching or whether anyone will ever know. That last part is important. Whether anyone will ever know, because a significant portion of your avoidance is tied to your audience. You are performing your life for observers, real and imagined. And a lot of the time, you're waiting for the version of your effort that looks impressive. You want to be seen working hard. You want the result to be visible and dramatic and shareable. And in the meantime, the actual quiet, invisible work of becoming who you need to be goes undone. Here's the truth. The most important work you will ever do will happen when no one is watching. The transformation you need to go through will mostly be invisible to everyone around you. The discipline you're building will show up in results eventually, but for a long time, it will be a private thing, a silent commitment between you and the person you're becoming. Make peace with that. Make peace with the invisibility of the process. The work does not need an audience to count. The effort does not need to be documented to be real. You do not need external validation to confirm that what you're doing matters. It matters because you're doing it. It matters because every day of genuine effort is a day added to the foundation. And the foundation is what everything else eventually stands on. The result that looks like an overnight success to everyone else will be standing on years of invisible mornings and quiet refusals and private decisions to keep going when stopping was easier. You are entering a different kind of life now, a life defined not by comfort, but by purpose, not by the avoidance of pain, but by the willingness to go through it to get to what's on the other side. A life in which your days have the quality of intentionality. Where you put your attention is where you placed your choice. Where how you spend your time reflects what you actually value rather than what you're addicted to. A life in which you are the author rather than the subject. Where things happen because you made them happen. Where your results, good and bad, trace back to decisions you made and own fully. This is not going to be easy. Nothing about what I'm describing is easy, but nothing worth having is built in comfort. Nothing worth becoming is built in safety. The thing you most want, the version of yourself you most want to inhabit, is built in the very difficulty you've been avoiding. It is waiting for you specifically in the discomfort you haven't been willing to sit in long enough, the discipline you haven't been willing to exercise long enough, the commitment you haven't been willing to make fully enough. Stop managing your ambitions down to match your comfort. Stop shrinking what you want to a size that feels achievable without demanding too much of yourself. You are capable of more than you have demonstrated, more than you have allowed yourself to pursue. The cap is not your talent and it is not your circumstances. The cap is your willingness to stay in the fire long enough for the fire to do its work. And the fire will do its work if you let it, if you stay in it. If you stop running back to comfortable the moment you start to feel it. The fire is not your enemy. The resistance you feel when you push past your comfortable edge is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that you have arrived at the place where growth actually happens. It is the feeling of your old self giving way, of the old wiring getting challenged, of your identity being asked to expand. And expansion hurts, but it is the most important hurt there is. You are not too old. You have not wasted too much time. You are not too far gone. The brain rewires at any age when given the right stimulus. The body adapts at any age when given the right demand. The identity shifts at any age when the actions change consistently enough. There is no door that has closed on you permanently. There are only doors you have not walked through yet because the hallway leading to them required more discomfort than you were willing to endure. Those doors are still there. Walk through them. This is not the end. This is not the peak. This is not even the middle. This is the beginning, the actual beginning of the life you've been circling for years without ever fully entering today. Not Monday, not the first of the month, not when the situation stabilizes or the kids get older or the job changes or the weather improves. Today, with the energy you have, with the resources you have, with the imperfect, uncertain, not quite ready situation you're actually in, you start here, you start now. You start with the next decision you make, and then the one after that, and then the one after that. The decisions that matter are not the big ones. They are not the dramatic declarations and the public commitments and the vision board moments. The decisions that matter are the tiny ones, the ones nobody sees. The one where you put the phone down and open the work, the one where you get up instead of snoozing, the one where you push to the next rep instead of stopping, the one where you tell yourself the truth instead of the comfortable version. Each of those decisions is a brick laid one after another, over days and weeks and months and years. They become the structure of your life, built by your choices, reflecting your actual values, standing as evidence of who you chose to become. You chose. That is the thing. Every step of the way you chose. And you are choosing right now, in this moment, with everything you've heard, with the discomfort of this truth sitting in your chest, you are choosing how to respond. You can choose to nod along and feel temporarily activated and then go back to exactly what you were doing before. You can let this be another piece of motivational content that felt good in the moment and changed nothing. Or you can choose to let this be the moment, the real one, the one you look back on later and say, that was when things actually changed. Not because of what you heard, but because of what you decided to do with what you heard. The script doesn't write itself. The body doesn't build itself. The discipline doesn't install itself. You have to build it manually, repeatedly, in the dark, against resistance, without applause, for as long as it takes. And it will take longer than you want. It will be harder than you expect. It will demand more from you than you currently feel willing to give. And you are going to do it anyway, because you are done with the alternative, because you have looked at where comfortable has gotten you and you are done with that destination. Because somewhere underneath the comfort and the distraction and the avoidance, there is something in you that knows what you are capable of and refuses to let you settle forever. That thing is still there. I want you to know it is still there. No matter how long you've been asleep, no matter how many times you've started and stopped, no matter how much ground you think you've lost, the capacity is intact. The potential is intact. What is required now is the decision to stop wasting it, to stop offering it to the scroll and the snooze button and the comfortable option, to reclaim it for the work that matters, the work that is yours to do, the life that is yours to build. Now get up. Stop waiting. Stop preparing to start. Start. The time is now. The version of you that is needed exists. Go build it.